Boom. Here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are glad to have you back to the CSIA Fireside Chat. Again, my name is Tommy Nelms. I'm the current president of the Chimney Safety Institute of America. And tonight, we're going to talk about something that most people think they're good at, and probably very few are, but we all have to learn from somewhere. And our guest tonight is my dear friend, former CSIA board member, Mike Segerstrom. And Mike teaches, runs a business out of New Jersey, and I'll get him to tell a little bit about himself, but he educates a lot of people through an organization called Copperfield, and they travel all over the country and teach sweeps and industry professionals, and he is one of their best instructors. He has certainly taught me a lot. So, Mike, we are glad to have you on tonight, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
And thanks so much for having me, Tommy. It's great to see you. I am from New Jersey, own and operate my own business, been working on chimneys and fireplaces for 25 years. This is my 25th year. As you said, I know a couple things. So I do some instruction in the industry, happy to do it, and just help people get better at looking at and working on chimneys. And I also do instruction for homeowners and affiliated trades. So cover a lot of ground in trying to get the message out that, you want your chimney and your fireplace to be working right.
Absolutely. And so, Mike, let's run it down. You're a CSIA Master Sweep. Are you
Yes.
CCP Master Sweep as well?
I am not.
Okay.
I'm a certified professional, but not a master technician.
And you are a Master Hearth Professional through NFI, through the National Fireplace Institute, correct?
Yes, sir.
What others? Man, I'm telling you, listen, this guy is one of the most highly educated people in our industry. He shares that wealth of knowledge with everybody. Very, very generous guy and super, super intelligent. So I'm so glad you're here, man. Break it down for us. What other certifications do you have, Mike?
Well, I'm a fire service certified fireplace and chimney inspector. That probably, one of my critical credentials, because in order to, fix something, you got to be able to inspect it first. So I kind of started there with the educational side of the industry, really just going with that. I have some other certifications that are less, prestigious. You kind of mentioned some of them, but really being a master sweep, master hearth professional, and certified inspector, really kind of the most important things. It kind of fills in all the blanks, checks all the boxes to make me well-rounded in what I do and what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And so again, if you're watching this, man, please join in our conversation, ask questions. Every time I talk to Mike, I always have a question for Mike. Mike is kind of like our personal tech support around here. And so jump in throw your comments out there. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But Mike, the reason why I had you on tonight as our guest is because we wanted to talk about something that you and I have talked about a lot. And that is, most people think that they know how to build a fire in their fireplace. And if you ask, especially guys, every guy you talk to, if you ask him, hey, can you build a fire? They're like, oh man, I can build an awesome fire. Well, here's the deal. Most of them can build a big fire, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is an efficient fire, or if it's a fire that is intended for a fireplace, right? So walk us through this, Mike. Talk to the folks about, what is the right way to build a fire in your fireplace? What are some things that they should consider or steps that they should do?
Well, the very first thing is make sure before you light your first fire of the season, you've had your system looked at. And you could have, an annual inspection by a certified chimney sweep would be a great way to, start the season. But once you know that you're in the clear and you've had your system inspected, swept if necessary, and you're ready for your first fire, it's starting to get cold. There's a couple of right ways to do it and a lot of wrong ways to do it.
Yes.
And one of the mistakes that's very common, I'm in the Northeast, kind of mid-Atlantic region. One of the mistakes that's very common is folks will pick up sticks from their yard that have fallen, broken, things like that. And these thinking it's good kindling for starting a fire. And one or two fires is not, the worst thing, but a lot of this branches they're picking up from the yard could be very wet. Some of it could even be green. And so when you're using kindling to start a fire, and you're doing a traditional method, maybe rolling up some newspaper, at the bottom, and then put some smaller, kindling on top. You want to make sure it's dried out kindling, or even some of the store-bought type of, fire starters and kindling are all good,
Sure.
for starting fires. But if you're, foraging for your own kindling, make sure it's dried out, because if you're just grabbing it off the yard and lighting a fire, there could be water in there, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But sending water up the chimney, when you're having a fire, it's not the best thing. And,
Sure.
As the operator of the fireplace, so having some good kindling is a good place to start with your fire. And then, as far as lighting things go, rule number one is open the damper first.
Yes.
Fortunately, if the guy who builds the good fire doesn't open the damper, but if anybody doesn't open a damper with a wood fire, everybody knows immediately.
Right.
Because the smoke just comes right back in the home, and it's a panic. It's a little bit of a fiasco. So always check to make sure you open the damper first. Knowing what kind of fireplace you have, having your certified sweep train you on opening the damper and that kind of stuff, so that when the time comes, you already know what to do, is a good preemptive step before the season starts. So you open the damper. As far as other materials to use, black and white newspaper material has proven, for decades, to be okay to use as a fire starter. But once you get into color printed materials with glue, like envelopes, and now we get into cardboard, you start to send chemicals up the chimney that you really don't want to send up the chimney or into the atmosphere of the environment. So if you're using paper products to start, stick with, black and white newspaper or plain white paper. Not that you want to buy paper to light a fire, but black and white, for a long time is for regular old newspapers. Even if you only get the Sunday paper now, take the comics and the coupons out. So everything that's left is pretty much black and white. And it's it lights fast, burns hot, and can get your kindling going, and get the fire established. And I can keep rolling here if you want me to.
Hey, keep going. I'm loving it. You're teaching me right now. Yeah.
Okay. So you've set your fire up and you've opened the damper. You made sure you're good to go. Different parts of the country and different types of homes also experience a complaint that people will get. Oh, it's hard to light the fire. When I first light it, some or a lot of the smoke comes back in the house, or when I open the damper, open the flue, all this cold air rushes down. And so that can be a chronic nuisance for some folks. There's a little bit of a learning curve on how to, kind of get over that and get through that. One of the things that was taught for years was roll up some newspaper and hold it up in the damper to sort of, they called it priming the flue. Over the years, some experiences have been learned from that. In putting flame up in places you can't see, there's been some reports of, there was a squirrel nest up there that nobody knew about. So get your certified sweep to look before you light your first fire. But say a squirrel moved in or something, and you're holding newspaper up there to try and start the flue, you could light a squirrel's nest. And then if you don't know the history of the chimney, you should. But if you don't, and there's a lot of creosote in there and you're holding fire up there, there's been reports of homeowners accidentally setting their chimneys on fire because they tried to prime the flue rolling up newspaper. So there's a couple other ways to kind of avoid that. And one of the easiest ways, this cold air that's coming down the chimney, the simple explanation, it's just caused by a vacuum in the house. So a simple way is, before you try and light the fire, crack a window or door, even if it's really cold out. If you crack it near the fireplace, then the cold air will go towards the fire and up the chimney, and you won't freeze your whole house. But just for the purpose of lighting the fire, you could crack a window or door nearby, and you'll feel the cold air come in the window or door, and then warm air leave your chimney in a matter of, sometimes seconds, but 30 seconds to a minute. Then you can light your fire, and once it starts to burn, then you can close the door, and you've kind of bypassed that. Otherwise, don't prime the flue with a butane torch. Guys do that.
Oh, yes.
I have a few clients who keep a hair dryer handy, and that's not the worst thing. There's no flames coming out of there. So, and there are also heat guns that some contractors who also have fireplaces will get their heat gun out, and there's no real flames there. So that's a safe way to prime the flue. But cracking a door or window is also real helpful, and then you're not trying to reach up in there and do things like that. So if you don't have that problem, or you've figured out how to deal with that problem, once you light the fire, another common mistake that homeowners make is they load everything up right away. So it's like it would be on a postcard, the newspaper, then the little sticks, then the middle sticks, and then these big giant logs on top. And the problem with getting the big logs on there right away is those logs don't light up very fast. And so the big logs can be very smoky. Mm-hmm. And if that happens every time you light the fire, you can add to, soot and creosote building up in the chimney, accidentally, not because your wood quality is bad. Even really great seasoned wood can be smoky before it gets hot. So start with the newspaper and the kindling, or the fire starters and some kindling, and then some smaller logs. Split logs are good. Any wood that you put in there should be seasoned. That goes without saying. Yeah. Let the smaller logs get burning first, so that you got a pretty good fire going. Then you can put a bigger log on there, and you'll have a much less smoky fire, which will reduce the need for frequent maintenance on the system. Once the fire's going, then it's, from there, it's just, depending on where you are in the country, will determine your access to whether you're burning pine and softwoods, or oak and hardwoods, or some blend in the middle. Will determine how often you need to add wood. But getting started for some folks, it can be a hurdle. It can be a challenge.
Yes, man. And you hit some really good points. Now, Mike, what if I'm a homeowner and I have a gas starter? What are your thoughts there?
So my thoughts, my default, anytime we introduce any type of an appliance, we generally default by saying, read the instructions of that thing. So some folks will buy a home and it'll have a log lighter and they have no idea how to use it. Yes. So doing some research on how to operate a log lighter is really important. Even contacting a certified sweep to come out and kind of go over it with them. That kind of thing is helpful. If they have the instructions are generally very simple on the log lighter. With log lighters, eliminate the need for kindling and newspaper. You can have some small logs right away. Operate the log lighter until the wood's burning. Turn the log lighter off. Pro tip, if you have a log lighter, when you're not using the fireplace, don't let the burner tube sit in ashes, because it will deteriorate much quicker than if you don't shovel out your fireplace. Just clear the ashes off the tube so it's not sitting in ashes that might have moisture, which can rust and corrode that log lighter.
Dude, that's a great point. Okay, Mike. So I've got my fire going, right? I followed your instructions. I used black and white newspaper. I did not get my kindling from my yard. I'm building it up, and now I've got a good little fire going. So does that mean now I can just load the firebox full of wood?
Generally, no. Okay. With open fireplaces, the space heating fireplaces, the ambiance fireplaces, they're not really designed for extended long burns, from one pile of wood. You can burn it all weekend, but when you load 3, 4, 5 logs in really big fireplaces, again, you run into the trouble of the wood on the bottom will start to burn, but the wood sitting on top will smoke. And then that can create a smoky chimney. And when you have a smoky chimney, you run the risk of, excessive or rapid creosote buildup. And, when you hear about chimney fires, that's what's happening is the creosote's catching on fire. So a hot bed of coals is really what's going to be what perpetuates the good fire. So your kindling's all burned up. Your small logs are all burned up. They've turned into nice, glowing embers. The first log, maybe the second log is now glowing embers. You can put 2 new logs on it, but generally no more than that, because then the third log is not going to be exposed to the flames. and it's going to take a lot longer, and you're going to be back in that smoky fireplace situation.
Okay, so Mike, if I heard you correctly, you're saying that a bed of coals, glowing embers, is better than having a huge flame, a flame that just kind of goes up and I can't see where it ends. Is that bad?
A lot of flame is going to happen. It's going to be intermittent from when you add fuel, and different types of woods have very tall flames. But a lot of your sustained heat that you're going to get is going to be from that glowing bed of coals. You'll get some heat off the flames, but the flames are constantly moving. The bed of coals is not. So the bed of coals is a constant radiant. So, it can make the room nice. People sitting on the couch will definitely feel that. They'll feel the flames, but the flames are constantly moving. So it's a little bit of a like irregular heat source, for lack of a better word. Flames are going to be tall, with certain types of wood. A properly built, well-maintained fireplace can handle that kind of thing. It's what it's meant for. But if you really want to get some sustained heat, it's that good bed of coals. And the good bed of coals is what makes it, for the next log to light quicker. If you let it just burn out and you can't see it glowing anymore, and you poke it and there's some coals in there, the next wood you put on is going to smoke a little bit.
Absolutely. And so, Mike, what are your thoughts on, you've seen it, I've seen it. We go into a customer's home, right there by the fireplace, there's a nice little plastic bottle of lighter fluid, charcoal lighter fluid.
So my thoughts are very simple on that. And we educate our homeowners on that. We should never be putting liquid starting products in our fires. A lot of things can go sideways, when you're doing that, accidental things. Most of those products will say right on the container, meant for outdoor charcoal grills and things like that. One of the things that can happen is the product can splash, and it can splash to places we don't want it. It can also, and one of the things that people don't often think about is if they overspray it in the fireplace, it can hit the walls of their fireplace. The masonry can absorb it, and it can just create some deterioration and damage by the actual mortar absorbing it and burning. It can soften the mortar, and premature deterioration by regular fire starter users is a thing.
Yeah.
But worst case scenario, if they're not paying attention and it drips out onto the hearth extension or something, the flames can follow that out into the room. Folks have gotten burned because they weren't, careful. So we definitely educate our clients, never use a liquid or gel accelerant or fire starter in a masonry fireplace. There are outdoor applications that are just fine for that when you follow the product instructions, but indoor we should really avoid that.
Yes. And we got a great question. Diane Pilger, which Mike, Diane. Could you explain how to identify or describe green wood to homeowners who don't know about moisture content and what seasoned wood is? This is a great point that we've heard a lot. Some people feel that free wood is good wood.
Free wood is awesome wood if you burn it next year. If a homeowner purchases wood, gets it delivered, a cord of wood or whatever it is, whoever sells it to them is generally going to tell them, oh, it's seasoned wood. And we're supposed to trust that it is. And they might even say it's all oak and hardwoods, and we won't discuss the actual delivery quality too much. We'll kind of stick to the wood. So
Sure.
If you get the wood delivered, and whether they stack it or you stack it, have an outdoor pile stacked with the top covered only. You don't want to cover the entire thing because it'll trap moisture. And they use the term seasoned. I don't know where it originated from, but basically let the wood sit out a year or 4 seasons, and then you don't need a moisture meter or any technology to figure out, is my wood good enough? Because it's going to be more than good. So the general rule we tell folks is a covered pile. If it's just cut, a covered pile, let it sit for a year. If it's split, if it's not split, that changes things, and then we get into advanced stuff. But it's there's no no real boilerplate way for a homeowner to know, other than if they cut it and split it themselves, they got to let it sit for a year. If they get it delivered, they should stack it as soon as they can, cover the top of the pile, so that it's open to the air, but not getting direct rain or snow on it.
Absolutely. And, I would recommend for the homeowner to have a moisture meter. They're cheap. You can get them at Amazon or Tractor Supply, Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's. They sell them all over the place. And just to check that thing out. And Carissa is with us as well. Mike, she says, hi, guys. So, Carissa, thanks for tuning in.
Hello.
So, Mike, is there a preferred way that you like to build a fire?
So, in learning more about fireplaces and how they work over the years, and, the inefficiency of putting newspaper on the bottom and kindling on top, I learned about from our industry. Some folks call it, an upside down fire, and its common name is a top down burn fire.
Okay.
And this is basically where you build the fire, you start it and build your pile completely opposite of what the entire country knows, yes. Where you put your small things on the top and your larger things on the bottom. And it doesn't sound like it makes any sense. And when you actually do it and try and build your first one, it may or may not work if you don't have your layered materials proper. It's a short or brief learning curve, but once you learn how to do it, it actually works really well. I believe we discussed this earlier, that the CSIA has a training video on this for homeowners.
We do. Buck Owens, CSI certified sweep, actually demonstrates it. He was at the tech center and actually lays it out for a top-down burn. Yes, fantastic.
It does. It lights the fire a little bit cleaner, less smoky, and it's really unique for homeowners that have never seen it. You could check out that video. It's really impressive how, even though it's opposite of what we've known since we were little kids, it actually works, and it works well.
Absolutely. So we got another question for you, Mike, from Lux Fireplace Inspections and Chimney Sweeping Services. Can you discuss the pros and cons of Duraflame logs?
I can, and I won't be brand specific. I will say manufactured logs, to be fair.
Absolutely.
So manufactured logs will advertise a certain percentage less creosote. They'll say 50% less creosote, 80% less creosote. And in some scientific testing, that's actually proven to be true. But it creates a misconception with homeowners and the general public that, these burn clean. When in fact, that's not, not completely accurate. They don't say that they burn clean. They just say that they have less creosote. So they'll still produce a significant amount of soot if they're used regularly. Some homeowners, that's all they like to burn. That's great. That's fine. It's a product available to the consumer public, but it makes them believe that, my chimney's clean because I only burn Duraflames, when in fact, several of these manufactured or processed logs will have like paraffin wax in them and binders to hold the burnables, the combustibles together. And if you have a buildup in your chimney of these byproducts, it can actually almost be like glue inside the chimney when it warms up, and it'll just accelerate the dirty process, especially if people go back and forth between burning wood and burning Duraflames. It can, as it warms up, it can be a little bit more prone to getting more creosote buildup from the wood, whereas the Duraflame logs might not have the creosote content. So still requires regular maintenance, even if someone's an exclusive Duraflame burner. And read the package, because some folks, I'll say guys, will think they can stack 2 or 3 Duraflames and light them up all at once, and really not supposed to do that because of the intensity of the heat that's coming off of there. They're designed to just one log at a time till it completely burns out. The packaging will tell you don't poke the log while it's burning to try and get some more, liveliness out of it or whatever. I'm not opposed to manufactured logs. Different folks have different positions on it. if that's what they want to burn, I double down on regular maintenance of the system because, they still produce soot. It just the soot itself might not contain nearly as much creosote, but it can still be bad for the chimney.
Absolutely. And so another good question. Some of those logs that we're talking about, Mike, have crackle, or color effects built into them. So the flames will be a different color. Are those bad for the fireplace?
So there's not a lot of available data on that. I've been asked similar questions by homeowners. There's not a lot of available data. So I'm a big fan of the whole idea of when in doubt, don't. And I would say save those type of logs for outdoor applications, fire pits and outdoor fireplaces where there's no home nearby attached to the chimney. Because if it's causing a problem or something could happen, it's removed from the home itself, and it's easier to get away from a fire that goes bad. If it's an outdoor fireplace, a fire pit or something like that. I did a little homework a while back on that, and I couldn't really find out. Manufacturers will tell you that it's been tested, but there's no real standard to test crackle logs or right. Colored logs. So yes. There's some limited data, and again, with fire in the house, I'm a big fan of when in doubt, don't. If you're not sure you should burn it, just burn good seasoned hardwoods and softwoods if that's all you have, and leave the show for something outside. As someone who has a outdoor fire pit, I'll throw the color stuff in there. Right. It's neat. Yeah, it's neat. It makes the flames purple and green and blue, but I wouldn't recommend doing that indoors just because we don't know.
That's right. And I mean, obviously, I think you made a good point. If you don't know, don't do it. Read the packaging, and then also, no matter what you do, have it inspected on an annual basis. Eric Chance made a comment. He said, I was asked the same question the other day. I told the client to save it for the camping trip.
There you go.
Yep. And Lou Curley just asked a question that I was actually going to ask. So Lou's question is, does Mike have any thoughts on creosote sweeping logs and other creosote modifying products? So, Mike, I'll let you jump in and do this, but what I want to say is these creosote logs, and they're branded a lot of different things. Some will say sweeping logs, cleaning logs, whatever it may be. Nothing substitutes a routine annual inspection by a CSIA certified sweep. So, Mike, you take it from there. What are your thoughts?
So, again, I'm not opposed to products that can make the sweeps job easier. And that's basically what these modifying logs and different powders, there's a couple other products out there. They will modify, creosote in a system so that when we come out to service the system, it actually removes from the clay or possibly a metal chimney. It removes easier. The failure, is folks will get these products and think they don't need us or they don't need a professional. And that's the biggest failure that I've seen over the years and folks have said it to me, oh, I burn, 6 of those a year, so I don't need you. And it's, well, you burn 6 a year. That's great. You have a dirty chimney that, has less combustible creosote in it, but it's still dirty. And when a chimney gets dirty, it can get smaller. That can affect draft and flow. There's lots of other things that are beyond just chimney fires. You can have performance issues where after a while, the fireplace starts to spill a little smoke. The glass doors on the fireplace might get real sooty after a while because, the flue is just getting smaller from soot buildup. So I'm not opposed to them as long as they're used according to their instructions and they get their system inspected at least annually and then, swept as needed.
Yeah, I completely agree. Nothing replaces that. The sweep coming to your home and actually performing a proper inspection on your system and educating you. Don't try to replace that with a log that you light and burn because that's not what it's designed for. And it'll tell you that on the packaging. The manufacturer on the packaging should tell you that. I know a lot of them do. So, Mike, we're 30 minutes in, man. What did we miss? Is there anything else that you want to talk to the homeowner about just properly building your fire operation and why it matters? We hit a lot of things, and you gave them a ton of great information. But is there anything that you want to just kind of hammer down on and leave them with?
Well, we've pretty well covered. Have your system inspected annually, and we recommend a certified sweep for that. So we pretty well covered that. If you don't have a fireplace and you have something like a wood stove, the recommendation we always make there is the wood stove manufacturer will actually have lighting instructions in the user manual, and it'll talk you through all the different steps for the air controls. So if you're watching this and you have a wood stove, there's so many different makes and models. The best way is look into the user manual. If you don't have a user manual, you could contact the manufacturer of that stove and get a user manual. So when you have a wood stove, follow the instructions. And then if you have what's known as a manufactured fireplace or a prefab fireplace, factory built fireplace, those will also have user manuals that will go into some detail about lighting the unit, as well as operation and annual maintenance considerations. So once we kind of wander away from masonry fireplaces, if there's an installation or operation manual, we always recommend that people will defer to that, because there may be some tips or tricks. Some fireplaces have a combustion air option, and so that can factor into lighting as well as usage. So when you have a manufactured fireplace, a wood stove, things like that, you want to go to the instructions, as well as get your annual service, whether it needs to be swept every year, but at least get it inspected annually.
Absolutely. We got another question for you, Mike.
Okay.
Diane Pilger says, please explain using glass doors / screens while burning.
Okay. So spark screens in front of the fireplace. There's no written code requirement for that. There's a common sense requirement for that. So whether it is a fixed screen, a gated screen, a portable screen, a curtain screen, you want to have something in front of the fireplace that will catch any sparks that might try and come flying out. Glass doors are, in addition to a type of screen. A lot of folks will have glass doors for aesthetic purposes. Other folks have this desire to have glass doors because they just want the system closed all summer, and they just don't like the idea of it being open. Other reasons would be if someone has potentially odor issues, they might get glass doors to kind of control that. And then some folks simply like being able to close the doors before they go to bed.
Sure.
So that they get a little more peace of mind when they go to bed, when the fire is still kind of burning. Rule number one with glass doors: not all glass doors are allowed to be closed during fireplace operation. There's tempered glass and ceramic glass. So if you're purchasing a set of doors, the less expensive doors that are more readily available to consumers are probably going to be the type of door that says keep the doors fully open during use, and that you can only close them when all the flames are gone and it's just coals, that kind of thing. Otherwise, if you're new to the fireplace and you don't know what kind of doors you have, we recommend fully open until you can either figure out what doors you have, or if at some point you replace them, because not all doors are approved for being closed during use. You also don't want to have halfway open or halfway closed, or one side open and one side closed, because it can throw off the way air reaches the fire. And the fire can misbehave. It may want to come forward, just different things. It might cause it to be smoky if it's, behaving badly. So doors are manufactured. They typically come with instructions. So again, a product that we first will defer to the instructions.
Absolutely.
Most people don't save the instructions to their doors. So the general rule is screens fully closed during use, glass doors fully open during use. And then you'll pretty much stay out of trouble. And when the fire's died down, it might just be some coals. Closing the doors is usually not an issue. But if there's active flames and logs still waiting to be burned and you don't know, just keep the doors fully open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then Joseph Quayle jumped on here. He said, hey, guys, hope y'all are well. You're always good when you get to hang out with Mike. And then, okay, here we go. We got another question. Man, Mike, I knew this was going to happen, man. Having you on here, everybody wants to ask Mike questions, and I get it. Bill says, is there some product that can be put in front of the fireplace so wood that cracks doesn't burn wood floors?
Well, that would be the screens. As far as the first rule, you had your system inspected, so you know that you have enough hearth extension in front of the fireplace.
Yes.
And the hearth extension is that area outside of the firebox. There are minimum depth and width requirements. So having at least the minimum is a starting point. You can always have more. There are some flame-resistant rugs that don't substitute a hearth extension, but they can be outside the hearth extension for a little additional protection. And then they make completely non-combustible floor protectors. But screens hanging in front of the fireplace or, fixed in front of the fireplace that are closed are going to be your first line of defense against sparks coming out. There will be some tiny sparks that could get through the screen, but they'll generally hit the screen on the way out, slow down, land on the hearth extension, and not really cause any problems. So most of the time we see, when we're in the field doing inspections and service, when we see a burned, little burns on the wood flooring, either the hearth extension was inadequate or, sometimes you have misbehaving operators of the fireplace who like to, it's in their house, but they like to open the screens because they like to see the fire. And folks do that. I get it. I have a fire pit, so I get it. Yeah. But you don't want to do that in your house. You always want to keep the screens closed. That's your first line of defense against sparks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly right. It's better to err on the side of caution than to roll the dice. It's never worth it. Well, Mike, listen, man, I appreciate your friendship, your mentorship towards me and to our entire industry, and just the work that you've put in to this industry. I can tell you all that when you watch this, that Mike Segerstrom is a guy that has dedicated himself to educating others and is always the first person willing to help. And we certainly do appreciate it. I know your customers in New Jersey appreciate it, and your students all over the country appreciate it as well, Mike. So again, if you watch this, please share this with folks, man. This is information that people need to know because you don't know what you don't know until somebody tells you you don't know it. And it's please like and share and put this out there. And what we'll do, Mike, is you brought up the CSIA video that Buck did. See if we can get somebody who's tech savvy to maybe put a link in the comments to that video because it's really good. Okay. And walks you through. You can always go to the CSI website and you can actually go up in the search bar and you can search top-down burn. We have a couple articles on the website that talk about that and the step-by-step process of how to do that. So, Mike, again, thank you so much for taking time away from your family tonight. Tell your wife thank you for letting us borrow you in your mind and just who you are, man. You're an awesome guy, and thank you for everybody who jumped in and asked questions. And we skipped last week. So we're actually going to do another fireside chat a week from tonight. So we'll see you again. And Mike, we're going to have you back on again. And thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. And thank you for what you do. You have a role in this industry as well. And, it's a volunteer position. So the industry thanks you for it. You're doing a great job. And, that needs to be said. It definitely does. But yeah, I'm always happy to help. Unless you call me an hour before the fireside chat and ask me if I can do it.
Well, Mike, listen, man, we're really excited to have you. Yeah, so we were trying to get Mike on last week, couldn't get it worked out. So we bumped it back a week just so we could get Mike on here and it would work with his schedule. So, Mike, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thanks to everybody else, and we will see you all next week.
All right. Take care.